She said my dam was unauthorized property, and the next morning it was gone. I stood there in the muddy rain, staring at the broken concrete and the roaring water rushing downstream. The HOA president, Karen Wilcox, stood beside a yellow excavator holding a clipboard like she owned the land. "You refuse to pay your community fees, Mr. Reeves," she said with a fake smile. "We had to enforce compliance." "Community fees," I repeated slowly, trying to keep calm. "This isn't even your land, Karen." She laughed, that sharp kind of laugh that made your blood boil. "Oh, it's everyone's land once it affects our neighborhood view. You built that dam without HOA approval. Consider this your notice of removal." I clenched my fists, watching gallons of water spill into the valley below. That dam wasn't some backyard pond, it was my irrigation control system. My father and I built it 15 years ago, stone by stone, to manage flooding from the ridge. Without it, that entire HOA community sat right in the flood path. My neighbor, old Joe, came running down the hill shouting, "They broke it, son! The water's turning wild, you gotta do something." But there was nothing left to save. The excavator had cracked the main barrier wide open. Karen handed me a folded letter, smugly saying, "Next time don't ignore HOA payments." I looked at the paper, it wasn't even official. No signature, no stamp, no legal authority, just her name printed in bold like she ran the whole county. "You just made a huge mistake," I said quietly. She smirked, "We'll see about that." The water's sound grew louder, deeper, heavier, and I noticed the soil around their lower houses starting to soften, the ground trembling just slightly. They didn't realize what they'd done, but I did, and soon they'd find out. Karen's laughter still echoed in my ears when the first cracks appeared near the road. It was faint at first, just the sound of water pushing through soaked ground, but I could feel it in my boots. The dam had kept that valley safe for over a decade, and now, without it, the river was taking back its course. Karen and her HOA crew were still celebrating near the site, taking pictures beside the excavator like they'd won some community award. One of them, a tall man in a neon vest, said, "That'll teach him to ignore HOA rules." I took out my phone, recording quietly. "Yeah," I muttered, "it's teaching someone a lesson all right." A truck pulled up. My brother Luke, former Army engineer, stepped out. His face went pale when he saw the wreckage. "Who did this?" he asked, scanning the chaos. "HOA," I said flatly, "claimed I owed fees for my own land." He crouched near the debris, touching the fractured edge. "They hit the retaining seal, that was the pressure point. When this river swells tonight, it's gonna move fast." Karen overheard us and strutted over, crossing her arms. "You two are trespassing on community property now. The HOA owns the floodway." Luke stood, towering over her. "Lady, this floodway was built under federal grant. You just damaged a government-registered structure." Karen blinked, then forced a laugh. "Nice try, there's no record of that anywhere." Luke gave me a look, the kind that said, she has no idea who she's dealing with. Because my brother still had his Army contacts, and every bolt, every design document for that dam was logged under our family name, filed with FEMA after the last flood disaster. I pulled out my tablet, opened the archive folder, and showed her the permit stamped with the federal seal. Her smile faded. "That can't be real." "It's real enough that when the inspectors come," I said, stepping closer, "you'll be the one paying damages." She tried to snatch the tablet, but Luke stopped her with one hand. "Touch it again," he said quietly, "and you'll regret it." Just then, thunder rolled across the sky, the air shifted, heavy and cold. Down in the distance, the water line had already doubled. Karen turned to her crew, nervous now. "Pack it up, let's go before this storm gets worse." But it was already too late. By sunset, the storm had rolled in hard. Sheets of rain hammered the hills, and the once calm river had turned into a roaring monster. The current tore through the broken section of the dam like it was paper. Karen's neighborhood sat in the valley below, lights flickering in neat little rows, all those perfect houses with trimmed lawns and matching mailboxes. From the ridge, I could already see the water creeping across the lower street, snaking through driveways like it was hunting for something. Luke was packing near the truck, checking readings on his tablet. "It's bad," he said. "The runoff's building pressure fast. Those drainage pipes they installed last year can't handle it." They'll call emergency services soon, I muttered, watching the road vanish under rising water. He nodded. Yeah, and when they do, they'll find your name all over the original flood control blueprints. As if on cue, my phone buzzed an unknown number. I picked up. Mr. Reeves? It was Karen's voice, shaky now. The water's rising. We need to. Could you maybe come help us? The fire department says the main culvert system is blocked. I let her words hang in the air. Blocked, I said slowly. You mean the one under the dam, the one your crew destroyed? She went silent. You remember what I told you this morning, I continued. You made a huge mistake. Please, she whispered, my house, my family's still inside. Luke glanced at me, then at the storm. We can stabilize the West Channel, he said under his breath, but we'll need equipment and fast. I looked down at the glowing neighborhood, HOA guards waving flashlights, shouting orders that made no sense. The water was already halfway up some driveways. Part of me wanted to walk away. They'd torn down everything my father and I built. They mocked me, called my land community property. But another part, the part my dad raised, couldn't just watch people drown. Get the generator, I told Luke. We'll divert it one last time. He gave a grim nod. As we climbed into the truck, I caught sight of Karen standing by the road in the distance, drenched and trembling, holding her useless clipboard against the rain like it could still protect her authority. We raced down the muddy slope, headlights slicing through the storm. The truck's tires slid over wet gravel as the river thundered beside us, louder than I'd ever heard it. Luke shouted over the rain, if we can reroute it through the West Trench, we might save half the neighborhood. I nodded, gripping the wheel tighter. Half's better than none. When we reached the valley floor, chaos had already taken over. HOA residents were running through the streets, trying to move cars, stacking sandbags, shouting orders no one followed. The perfect little suburb now looked like a disaster zone. Karen spotted us and ran forward, soaked to the bone. You have to help us. The basements are flooding, kids are trapped in some homes. I stepped out, glaring at her. You tore down my dam for unpaid fees, you remember that? Her lip trembled. I didn't know this would happen. That's the thing about power, I said. You don't have to understand it for it to destroy you. Luke was already setting up the portable pumps, connecting hoses, barking orders like he was back on base. A few men from the neighborhood joined him, desperate for direction. Hook that to the culvert, no other side, keep it tight, he yelled. The rain came down harder, turning the dirt road into a river of its own. I ran to the truck bed, pulling out the emergency flares and planting them along the trench line. The red glow cut through the storm, outlining where we'd dig. Karen followed me, voice shaking. Can I help? I turned, locking eyes with her. You can start by getting everyone out of those houses on Maple Drive. It's the lowest street. It'll go under first. She hesitated, but those aren't. Do it, Karen, I snapped. Something in my tone must have hit her. She turned and ran, shouting orders for the first time that actually mattered. Luke's voice came through the rain. We got flow starting. I looked over and saw the water beginning to shift, slowly bending toward the trench we dug last year as backup. For a moment, hope sparked. Then a deep cracking sound echoed through the valley. Luke froze. That's not good. I looked toward the ridge. The hillside above the HOA clubhouse was collapsing. The ground, loosened by the storm, was giving way. Karen turned just in time to see it, a wall of mud and water breaking loose, roaring straight toward the heart of the neighborhood. The sound that followed was like thunder tearing the ground open. The hillside slid down in a violent rush, trees, soil, and shattered concrete tumbling together like an avalanche. Karen screamed as the wave of mud swallowed the HOA clubhouse in seconds, ripping through fences and swallowing cars whole. Luke grabbed my arm. Back now. We ran for the truck, but the ground behind us cracked open, water gushing out like veins bursting under pressure. I could feel the shockwaves through my boots. The earth was done holding. Luke, the trench, I shouted. He was already on it, redirecting the valves. The water started pouring into the diversion path we'd built years ago, but the force was too strong, stronger than anything the old pipes could handle. In the chaos, I saw Karen stumble near a fallen light pole. Her clipboard floated past her like some cruel reminder of all her rules. Without thinking, I jumped into the knee-deep water, grabbed her arm, and pulled her up. She coughed, shaking, staring at me like she couldn't believe I'd just saved her. Why would you help me? I looked at her, rain pouring down my face, because I'm not like you. Behind us, the water finally reached its breaking point. A surge roared through the valley, flooding every empty lot they'd built their dream homes on, all on land that wasn't meant to be developed. The HOA's pride, their perfect little paradise, disappeared under brown, rushing water. Luke's voice cut through the wind. It's done, the trench is catching most of it. We scrambled back to the ridge as the rain began to ease, the worst of the flood rolling away. The once bright houses below now looked like ghostly shapes half buried in mud. Sirens echoed in the distance, real emergency crews finally arriving. Karen stood beside me, soaked and shaking, staring at what used to be her kingdom. It's all gone, she whispered. I didn't answer. By morning, the storm had passed, but the neighborhood looked like the end of the world. Cars sat half buried in mud, fences twisted into strange shapes, and the proud HOA sign that once read Maple Ridge Community, a peaceful place to live, lay upside down in a ditch. Firefighters and county rescue teams worked their way through the wreckage, pulling people from flooded basements. Luke was coordinating with them, showing the emergency crews where the weak points in the terrain were. He'd been up all night, but he never slowed down. I stood at the edge of what used to be my dam. Only scattered pieces of concrete were left, sticking out like broken teeth. Karen approached slowly, wrapped in a red blanket someone had given her. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and for once she didn't have that arrogant spark. I talked to the sheriff, she said quietly. They know now the HOA wasn't supposed to touch your property. I nodded. They shouldn't have needed a flood to figure that out. She winced. They said I might face charges, property destruction, negligence, falsifying notices. I looked at her, calm but cold. You forged authority, Karen. You thought a letterhead made you the law, but laws don't bend just because you print them yourself. She stared at the ground, rain dripping from her hair. I never meant for this to happen. Yeah, I said, that's what everyone says after they get caught. Behind us, a news crew had arrived, setting up cameras near the collapsed road. Reporters whispered as they filmed the devastation, and every few minutes they mentioned my name. Local landowner and veteran Michael Reeves warned HOA officials before the incident. Luke joined me, wiping his hands on his soaked jacket. FEMA reps are coming this afternoon, he said. They'll see the files and the footage. You'll be cleared of everything. I nodded, watching Karen as she sat on the curb, staring blankly at what she'd destroyed. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but then I remembered her smirk as the excavator tore through my dam and the fake paper she'd waved in my face. Some debts can't be paid in money, only in lessons. By noon, the floodwater had begun to settle, leaving behind a muddy silence that felt heavier than the storm itself. News vans lined the main road, and county officials waded through the wreckage with clipboards and cameras, documenting every inch of the destruction. I stood beside Luke as the sheriff approached. He was a tall man with tired eyes, holding a folder full of photos. Mr. Reeves, he said, we've gone through the footage you provided, the one showing the HOA equipment demolishing the dam. That's enough for a full investigation. Luke handed him the original FEMA registration papers. Everything in there. That dam was certified, approved, and under maintenance schedule until they interfered. The sheriff nodded. Then the HOA's in deep trouble, real deep. He turned toward the crowd of shaken residents. Most of them were silent, covered in mud, realizing what they'd lost. The same people who'd voted for Karen's rules, who'd believed her when she said we're just enforcing order. Now they had nothing left to enforce. Karen stood off to the side with two deputies, her blanket gone, her hair tangled, and her face pale. She didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't even look up as the sheriff read her rights. The same voice that once ordered everyone around was now trembling under the sound of handcuffs clicking shut. When she passed me, our eyes met. For a second there was no anger, just exhaustion. She whispered, "You saved us anyway, why?" I didn't look away, because you didn't deserve to die, but you sure deserved to face what you caused. Luke watched as they led her away. You think she's learned anything? I exhaled slowly, maybe, but sometimes lessons don't stick until everything's washed away. The sheriff came back handing me a signed statement. You'll be compensated for the damages. FEMA and the county both confirmed your ownership. It's officially yours again. I looked out over the valley where the houses once stood. The land now lay bare, scarred but clean. My father's dam was gone, but the ground beneath it, that was still ours. Luke put a hand on my shoulder. Guess the land knows who really takes care of it. Weeks passed and the valley began to heal. The mud dried, grass pushed through the cracks, and the river found its calm again, quiet, steady, almost peaceful. Construction crews cleared what was left of the HOA homes, their perfect streets now nothing more than flattened ground and broken memories. I stood by the ridge where the dam once stood, hands in my pockets, watching the sunset reflect off the new flow of water. The land looked raw but alive, free again. Luke walked up beside me, handing over a mug of coffee. You know, he said, the county offered to rebuild the dam, this time under full government protection, said they'll name it after Dad. I smiled faintly. He'd like that. He always said the land belongs to those who respect it. We stood in silence for a moment, listening to the river's soft hum. Below, the empty valley stretched wide, no fences, no rules, just open space. The HOA had officially been dissolved. Karen faced trial for property destruction and forgery. Word spread fast, she'd been banned from managing any community association again. Funny thing was, the same residents who once followed her now showed up at the hearing demanding justice. But I didn't go, I'd already gotten mine. Because revenge wasn't in the flood or in her arrest. It was in standing right here on land that was rightfully mine, knowing I'd protected it, even from the people who tried to take it. Luke looked at the horizon. You ever think about moving, starting somewhere else? I shook my head. No, this place, it's home. Besides, someone's gotta make sure nobody tries to build another HOA here. He laughed. Good luck with that. I smiled, watching the last bit of sunlight fade over the hills. If they ever do, I said softly, I'll just let the river remind them who's in charge. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of fresh rain and earth. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't smell like loss, it smelled like peace.